September 1944. High above the impenetrable jungles of Borneo, Major Richard Ira Bong eased his P-38 Lightning into a shallow dive. The twin Allison engines purred, delivering a combined 3,000 horsepower. Through the armored glass of his canopy, he scanned the sky below, his eyes, accustomed to spotting game in the forests of Wisconsin, unerringly finding their target. Japanese fighters were desperately climbing towards a formation of American B-24 Liberators on a vital mission to destroy the oil fields fueling the Japanese war machine. They were unaware that one of the deadliest pilots in American history was already positioning himself above them. What the Japanese pilots didn't know was that this unassuming farm boy from the tiny town of Poplar, Wisconsin, now tracking them through his gun sight, had already sent dozens of enemy aircraft to the ground. By the end of the war, he would have 40 confirmed victories, making him the highest-scoring ace in American history. That record remains unbroken to this day, and likely never will. But this is not just a story about numbers. This is the story of how a quiet, mild-mannered young man became a legend. Of how a pilot with serious disciplinary problems transformed into a precise and ruthless instrument of aerial warfare. And of how the combination of natural talent, relentless training, and one of the most formidable fighters of its time created a symbol of American air superiority in the Pacific theater. The path to 40 victories began not with innate aggression or a warrior's instinct, but with something far more down to earth. It began on a farm in northern Wisconsin, in a large family of Swedish immigrants during the Great Depression. Richard Bong, or Dick as he was known, was the eldest of 9 children. From a young age, he was quiet, shy, and spent all his free time outdoors. His greatest passion was hunting, and it was here that his first and most crucial talent emerged: phenomenal marksmanship. He could hit a running squirrel or a bird on the wing with astonishing ease. This skill, honed in the woods of Wisconsin, where every bullet counted, would one day find its application in the skies over the Pacific. As the clouds of war gathered over Europe, young Bong, like many of his peers, was fascinated by aviation, by the tales of Lindbergh and the heroes of World War I. He enrolled in a state teachers' college while simultaneously signing up for the civilian pilot training program. Even then, his instructors noticed something special, an intuitive feel for an aircraft, as if he were born for the sky. But this talent also had a rebellious side. Upon joining the U.S. Army Air Forces in 1941, Bong faced his first challenges. During his medical examination, a chronic ear infection was discovered, which caused him to perform poorly on tests for balance and depth perception. His career could end before it even began, but Bong was persistent. In an unofficial test to prove his fitness, he flawlessly touched the tip of a pencil held by his instructor with his eyes closed, proving that his instincts more than compensated for any doubts the doctors had. After graduating from flight school, Second Lieutenant Richard Bong was assigned to Hamilton Field in California. It was here that he first sat at the controls of the aircraft that would become his signature, the twin-engined Lockheed P-38 Lightning. And it was here that his rebellious spirit almost cost him his career. Instead of diligently studying the new machine, Bong began putting on unauthorized air shows in the skies over San Francisco. He performed low-altitude acrobatics over residential areas, buzzed trains, and, according to the most famous legend, even flew under the Golden Gate Bridge. The final straw was his attempt to blow the laundry off a clothesline at a friend's house. His commanding officer, General George Kenney, was furious. He called Bong to his office and gave him the chewing out of a lifetime, threatening him with a court-martial. But Kenney was one of the most perceptive commanders in the Pacific. Behind the boyish recklessness, he saw an incredible gift: exceptional aircraft control, phenomenal spatial awareness, and reflexes that operated with lightning speed. Instead of grounding Bong, Kenney told him, "If I didn't think you were capable of it, I wouldn't have you in my Air Force. But I don't want other pilots trying to copy your stunts and getting killed." Instead of punishment, he assigned him additional training and kept him under personal observation. He understood that such qualities were too rare to discard. They were what separated good pilots from great ones. By September 1942, Bong was deployed with the 9th Fighter Squadron to New Guinea. He arrived with minimal combat experience. His opponents, the Japanese pilots, had been fighting continuously since 1937. They were veterans of China and the Philippines, hardened in brutal air battles. Their A6M0 fighters were legendary, incredibly maneuverable machines capable of outturning any American aircraft in a close-quarters dogfight. On paper, the odds were stacked against him. Bong's weapon was the P-38 Lightning, nicknamed the Fork-Tailed Devil by the Germans. It was a revolutionary aircraft, a twin-boom design, 2 powerful turbocharged engines that gave it an edge at high altitudes, and counter-rotating propellers that eliminated torque. But its main advantage was its armament, concentrated in the nose: 4 50-caliber machine guns and a 20mm cannon. Unlike wing-mounted guns, which had to be converged at a specific distance, the P-38's nose battery created a dense and devastating stream of fire at any range. The Lightning could outrun and outclimb most Japanese fighters, but it was less maneuverable at lower speeds. American pilots who tried to turn and burn with a Zero often died quickly. Bong didn't try. Along with other pilots, he honed tactics based on the aircraft's strengths, but he also had his own secret. Many considered him simply a precise marksman, but his tactic was far more risky and aggressive. He would close in on the enemy to an extremely short distance, sometimes just 50 meters or even closer. As he once described his method, it was about flying up the Jap's ass with a boatload of lead. From that range, it was impossible to miss. His short, precise bursts, which conserved so much ammunition, were the result not of elegant long-range gunnery, but of iron nerves and a willingness to risk everything. His philosophy was simple and effective. Never engage in a turning fight. Use altitude to gain speed. Dive on the enemy, deliver a short, lethal burst, and climb away, using your power advantage. This method, known as boom and zoom, became his signature and the foundation of American fighter tactics in the Pacific. His tally of victories began to grow at an astonishing rate. In his very first engagements over Borneo, he downed a Zero and a bomber. By November 1943, he had 21 kills, making him one of America's top aces. General Kenney personally awarded him the Distinguished Service Cross and sent him home on a Bond War tour. The American public was enthralled by the humble hero, but Bong was eager to return to combat. It was during this period that an unspoken rivalry was unfolding in the Pacific, adding drama to the story. America had another brilliant pilot, Major Thomas Maguire, flying in the same 5th Air Force. Unlike the modest Bong, Maguire was ambitious, aggressive, and openly sought to become the #1 ace. Kenney, seeing this, worried that a deadly race for the record could cost him both of his best pilots.
He didn't want them risking their lives for newspaper headlines. By March 1944, Bong was back in New Guinea, flying an upgraded P-38J with improved engines and hydraulic aileron boosters that enhanced high-speed maneuverability. By this time, the balance of power had shifted. American pilots had thousands of hours of flight time and superior training. The Japanese, suffering heavy losses, were throwing untrained novices into battle. By June 1944, Bong's score reached 28, breaking the record of the legendary Eddie Reichenbacher from World War I. General Kenney officially forbade him from flying routine combat missions, declaring him too valuable to risk. He was furious. Eventually, Kenney compromised. Bong could fly, but only as a flight leader on high-priority missions with cover from experienced pilots. The restrictions didn't slow him down much. In October 1944, during a massive raid on the oil refineries at Balikpapan, his aircraft sustained heavy damage, including hits to an engine. Most pilots would have immediately disengaged. Bong feathered the damaged engine, activated the fire suppression system, and, on a single working engine, continued the fight, downing another enemy plane before returning to base. By December 1944, he had 40 confirmed victories. This time, the order came from General Douglas MacArthur himself. America's top ace was to return home, permanently. His combat career was over.
Richard Bong returned to the United States as a national hero. He received the nation's highest military honor, the Medal of Honor, from the hands of the Secretary of War. He married his longtime sweetheart, Marge Vattendahl, whose name and picture had adorned the nose of his aircraft. A long and happy life away from the war seemed to await him, but Bong wasn't made for parades and banquets. He was a pilot to his core. The only place he felt truly alive was in the sky. He accepted an offer to become a test pilot for the Lockheed Corporation, the creator of his trusted P-38. He was tasked with mastering the future of aviation, jet fighters. His new aircraft was the Lockheed P-80 Shooting Star, America's first operational jet. With speeds over 500 miles per hour, completely different flight dynamics, and cutting-edge technology, it was a new, uncharted world compared to the familiar piston engine lightnings. Bong, the greatest pilot of a fading era, was chosen to tame this new beast. August 6, 1945, Lockheed Air Terminal in Burbank, California. Major Richard Bong was preparing for his 12th test flight in the P-80. It was a completely ordinary day, a routine check of a production aircraft. He lifted his P-80 into the air, but almost immediately after takeoff, disaster struck. The primary fuel pump failed. For an experienced pilot, this shouldn't have been a fatal problem. There was a standard procedure: switch on the auxiliary fuel pump. But the P-80 was a new, still unfamiliar machine. In the chaos at a critically low altitude, Bong, the hero of 200 combat missions, made a tragic mistake. He forgot to engage the backup pump. The engine flamed out. He tried to restart it, but it was too late. He attempted to bail out, but the altitude was insufficient. The P-80 crashed to the ground at the intersection of two streets in North Hollywood. Major Richard Ira Bong, America's ace of aces, died instantly. He was only 24 years old. On that very same day, August 6, 1945, on the other side of the world, an American B-29 bomber named the Enola Gay dropped an atomic bomb on the city of Hiroshima. The world was entering the atomic age. The news of the greatest pilot of the piston era was lost amid the headlines that announced the dawn of a new, terrifying epoch. His death was a symbolic and tragic end to an entire era of air combat. Nearly 80 years have passed. Richard Bong's record of 40 victories has never been surpassed by any American pilot, and most likely, it never will. Modern air combat, with its long-range missiles and radar guidance, will never again produce such heroes of close-quarters visual combat. Bong's legacy is more than just numbers. It's the tactical innovations that were incorporated into training manuals and became the foundation for thousands of pilots. It's the bomber crews he saved and the soldiers on the ground who watched his lightning clear the skies for them. It's the validation from surviving Japanese pilots who described encountering American aces who masterfully used tactics of speed and altitude that were almost impossible to counter. But most of all, it's the story of how a humble farm boy, relying not on recklessness, but on patience, incredible precision, and flawless execution, became a legend. He wasn't an aggressor in the classic sense. He was a hunter, patient, calculating, and lethally effective. Every one of his missions was the result of careful planning. Every victory was the result of perfect positioning and accurate fire. Today, at the Richard I. Bong Veterans Historical Center in his home state of Wisconsin, a restored P-38 with Marge's portrait on its nose stands as a reminder of the young hero who proved that in aerial combat, superior technique and consistent mastery produce exceptional results. The record speaks for itself, and he will forever be remembered in history as America's Ace of Aces.